This video is sponsored by MPB. As quite literally a day one adopter of the Lumix full frame lineup, I bought the S1 originally, and I've followed the lineup all the way through to the S5-2X and the S9. I'm very excited to tell you my thoughts on the S1Rii Mark II. Disclaimer, I went to the event in Norway and I have the camera on a long-term loan. I haven't been paid, Lumix haven't seen this, I don't get told what to say. There's a lot of cool stuff, and more importantly, a lot of stuff that's annoyed me for a very long time that's been fixed. So, please try to enjoy each fact equally, and let's get stuck in. A huge update for me is just how snappy the S1Rii is. You turn it on, we're on. There's no faffing about and waiting. I can't tell you how many times I've turned on my S5 II, or my S9, or my G9 II, all of them. How many times I've turned these cameras on and I actually think the battery's dead or the camera's broke because the boot up time is ridiculous. And the same goes for the recording as well. So the S1Rii Mark II, you press record and it starts recording. If you've ever used any Lumix camera in the past, you will know that there's like a second or two delay before you press record. You have to compose your shots and be mindful of that. You have to hold still, press record, there's a beat, and then the recording starts. It really caught me off guard in the best way possible that this is no longer a thing with the S1Rii Mark II. It turns on instantly and it records without any delay. We now have a dedicated photo and video dial, and I am so enthusiastic about this. I mentioned this in my recent OM System OM3 video that also has this. I think it's a feature that every camera should have, to be honest, because the way that you set up a camera for photo versus video is completely different. And there were workarounds with the other Lumix cameras. You could use the C buttons and create custom profiles, but there's nothing quite like just pressing one button and everything is set up to your taste. As a hybrid shooter myself, where I often want to take a quick photo and a quick video clip of something that's going on, it doesn't slow me down. And to give you an idea of how I set this up and why it's so powerful, for example, in photographs, I will be shooting my exposure compensation to 0, and I will be shooting in Cine D or natural color profile, because I like to shoot in JPEG and RAW. In video, I shoot in Vlog, and my exposure compensation needs to be up by at least 1 stop, because you have to expose Vlog a little bit spicy. On the S5 II, it was a matter of changing from Cine D to Vlog, upping my exposure compensation, and I got it down to a fine art, like a combination of pressing buttons. But with the S1Rii Mark II, it's literally one button. Photo, video, and everything is set up. And that goes down to each custom button as well. All of your function dials you can set up completely differently. It's like having 2 cameras in one, and it's worth its weight in gold if you are a hybrid shooter. Here is a big one that I think a lot of people have been anticipating and looking forward to, and that is we now have 4K 60p and 4K 120p without a crop, or with the tiniest crop ever. It reads the full frame of the sensor anyway. You no longer have an APS-C punch-in when you press record in these modes. When I shoot wedding videos, I shoot a lot of it in 50p, and I get so used to composing with the crop in mind. Like even in the morning, I'll shoot on my 24mm prime, knowing that when I punch in, it'll be more close to 35mm. And I've actually had to rewire my brain to not anticipate that happening. There's no more crop. It makes the whole thing more seamless. You don't have to anticipate it and factor it in. And of course, it's super snappy and instant to record as well. And just a quick note, I believe the 50 and 60p is phase detect autofocus and all subject detection works as normal, and 100 and 120p we have contrast-based autofocus with no subject detection. Okay, we're going a bit niche now, but this is what this video is all about. I firmly believe that like the little things that you enjoy in a camera makes the whole experience better. And this is one of those things. We have the lock switch here, and the lock switch you can customize completely however you want. Now, it's something that you might look at and go, that's not very important, but it depends on what you're shooting. For example, in Norway, we had a bit of snow and a bit of rain to deal with. And when that touched the touchscreen on the back, it could move your focus point into one of the corners. And then the next time you took a photo or video, the autofocus was all over the place. And those of you who have shot on the S5 II or the S5-2X will know that the back dial is notoriously easy to nudge. And if you're shooting video, you only have to nudge it slightly out of your sync, and then you could get flicker in your shot. So with the lock button, I personally use it to quickly disable the touchscreen and quickly disable the back dial as well. This way, I can set my focus point into the center and I can just sort of run and gun, shoot however I like and know that everything's set up fine. But you can customize it even further as well. Here are some options in the menu. And speaking of that annoying back dial, rejoice. The design of the S1Rii has a much better back dial. It's a little bit more rigid and it's sort of designed to be in a little bit so that you don't knock it as much. Again, this sounds pedantic, but if you have used these cameras, you will have found this as annoying as I have, I am sure. So let's quickly look at the design and some of my favorite little important improvements. It's kind of like if the original S1 and a GH7 and an S5 II had a baby. It's 98% the size of the S5 Mark II, which means that my small rig cage actually fits perfectly without any compromise. I've been told by some other people who've had a tinker with this camera that not every cage does fit, so do check out if you have a different one. But my Black Mamba small rig cage fits perfectly. And I'm really happy with that because I think when you're moving on to a new camera, it's the little things that you have to think about, like, does it take the same battery? Do I need to buy a cage again, etc. And this is like, it's fine. Same battery, same cage, really, really happy. Just like the GH7 and the original S1, we have a CF Express card and an SD card, and this enables you to record really high quality stuff internally with no external SSD required. It also has an articulating and flippy screen like the GH7, which I think is absolutely the best of both worlds, but unlike the GH7 that has a whopping great thermal management fan at the back, this camera has a smaller thermal management fan, more like the S5 II series. So you get the benefit of having a flippy and articulating screen, but it doesn't make the camera any thicker as well. There is a tally lamp on the front and the back, and it's a feature that is very niche, but a lot of people love and have asked for. I personally love it because whichever way I'm facing the camera, whether I'm in front of the camera or behind it, I know at a glance that I'm recording. It's a little bit of extra peace of mind. And if you are working with talent in an interview situation, for example, they can see clearly when the camera is recording, which is always really handy. The lockable dials are excellent. It's very reminiscent of the original S1 and also the GH7, and it just gives you that more premium vibe compared to the S5 II lineup. Every piece of material on this camera, while it does look quite similar to the S5 II, feels a lot more premium. I just hope it comes over on the video because sort of looks at a glance, it looks quite similar to the S5 II, but it's a heck of a lot more premium in every respect. Even down to like how the SD door opens. And another thing that I love, my next exciting fact, is you have individual doors for all of your ports. No more flappy doors all over the place if you just want to access one specific port. I think it's a much tidier way to run things. One feature I love in this camera is the handheld high-res mode. You have 44 megapixels to begin with, so that's pretty damn cool. But if you just need a little bit more, we have up to 176.5 megapixels. Let me show you this in action. So I've come out with just a really wide angle lens. I've got the 14-28 and I really want to get some nice pictures of the cathedral and stuff behind me. I'm going to test out the handheld high-res mode and see just how convincing we can get a shot using all of the megapixels to pretend that I packed the correct lens. Here's what it looks like straight out of camera with the 28mm, and let's see how much we can crop in and what details we can see. So as you can see, it gives you loads of detail in these files. It's just an extra additional peace of mind sort of thing, like whether you've got the wrong lens on, like what I had, or whether you're shooting a landscape and you want to get some really high detailed shots, or whether you want to change the crop in editing. It's just a great feature to have and it works flawlessly. So if this new camera, or perhaps anything else I've reviewed recently, has caught your eye and you're thinking about selling some of your gear to change up your lineup, then definitely check out MPB, the kind sponsor of today's video. MPB is the largest online platform for buying, selling and trading your camera equipment. And let me show you how easy it is to sell. You just need to type in the model of what you're selling, maybe it's a camera and a few lenses, and also note the condition. You will get an instant quote. There's no need to talk to a human. I hate talking to people. If you agree, you can arrange free shipping straight from your door. Now, I have to say, on my Facebook group and also on my YouTube comments section, I've had a lot of people say that at this point, MPB honors the original quote or even comes back and offers you more money if you've under-egged the condition. So you will always get a fair price with MPB. So I have links for MPB in the description for the UK, US and EU. And if you do use MPB, using my links shows MPB that I sent you their way, and that really helps support the channel as well. So thank you as always to MPB, and let's get back to the nerdiness. With the electronic shutter, we have 40 frames per second, and we have pre-burst modes up to 1.5 seconds before you hit the shutter. So this could be a fantastic sports wildlife sort of setup. This is one that got an ooh and an ah and a cheer during our trip. And that is with the new Lumix Flow app, you can use your mobile phone as a monitor. Now this is music to my ears, because even when I need a monitor, like if I'm shooting a full day a wedding film and I'll have a cage and I'll have everything set up, I still can't often be bothered using a monitor because it's one more thing to pack, one more thing to remember to charge. And when it's plugged in via USB-C, there's very little latency, if any. It looks really smooth and just like a standard monitor would. And this next one is a feature I've been wanting for a long, long time. The dusty shutter thing. When you turn the camera off, it sounds like it takes a photo. And what that actually does is bring down a protective shutter. So when you're in Norway, for example, and you want to change lenses in the snow and the wind, you have a little bit of peace of mind. And this as well is very quick and very seamless. It doesn't delay turning the camera on, and you can just hear it shut when you turn the button off. Done. Another big one for the video-centric boys, we have false colour built in. No more faffing around with custom fake it LUTs. We have it built in, and you can assign this to a custom button or have it in your quick menu, which is what I've done. It's great to just toggle on and off to check that your footage is going to be exposed correctly. This next one blew my tiny mind. There was a lot of mind blowing on this trip. We have a couple of stabilization options and one brand new one called cropless e-stabilization. Now, if you know about e-stabilization, you'll know that the penalty of getting this sort of enhanced stabilization often comes with a punch-in. It could be a very dramatic punch-in or a very subtle punch-in, but there's always a punch-in. That's how it works. Now we have cropless e-stab. You're getting the benefits of electronic stabilization without having a crop penalty. This only works with official Lumix lenses because they needed all the gyro data and all that techie stuff that's way over my head in order to make this feature work. But basically, I think it reads outside of the view of the lens and then crops in from that rather than what's inside the field of view and in. Sorry, I just hit my microphone. This is cropless at 14mm. This is high e-stab at 14mm. And this is all e-stabilization off at 14mm. So in terms of where that sits in the lineup, we have just optical stabilization, which is fantastic in and of itself. And then at the top, we have e-stabilization, which you can change the intensity of, and that's excellent, but does have a punch-in. And then somewhere in the middle, we have cropless e-stabilization, which enhances optical stabilization, but isn't quite as powerful as the big boy. It's incredibly handy, particularly if you're shooting with wide-angle lenses and you want that extra bit of stabilization goodness. So those are my fun facts. Here are a few more things to bear in mind. At the expense of having such a delightfully snappy camera, I have noticed that the battery life is quite a bit worse than the S5 II and the S9 and GH7, yada yada yada. This battery life is a little bit worse. It's not disastrously worse, it's not unusable, but I think it is a little bit worse in my experience, and I think a lot of people have said the same thing. This is a feature and not a bug, because that's the expense of getting such a snappy and fast and wonderful camera, and between the two, I would have the snappy performance any day of the week. But just keep that in mind, you might need to stick an extra battery in your bag if you are using this camera. Super nerdy thing to keep in mind, because this is a brand new sensor and there's lots of brand new cool technology in it. All of your native ISO values are completely different to other Lumix cameras. If, like me, you've been in the Lumix ecosystem forever and you know which native ISOs to gravitate towards, like your upper ISO limit is usually ISO 4000, for example. On this camera, it's 1000, so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I so wish that on all Lumix cameras, in fact, Lumix would make the number of the native ISO stand out in the menu. So, you know, maybe like ISO 1000 in this camera would be red to show that that's the native ISO where you will get the cleanest results. I think it'd be such a little change, but I think it could be really powerful because there's so many times in Norway that I automatically stuck my camera on ISO 4000, hoping that that would be the cleanest setting, and it's not, because that's not the native ISO anymore. So yeah, keep that in mind. So who is this camera for, and would I buy one? Well, it sits at around £3,000 at the moment, and it's a very high-end, very tech-rich camera. If I were still full-time doing wedding videography and photography, I would definitely be investing in this line of cameras. This would be perfect for both of those scenarios. You could maybe have two of those, or maybe get this and like an S5 II as a second body. I think that would be great. If you were a small production company, like myself, I used to do like corporate video and corporate interviews and things like that. Having a camera that's this spec rich at that price as a professional tool is incredible. And I honestly don't think there's much else to rival it with the specs that it has at this price point. But for me now, as Emily Lowry, professional camera nerd who sits here and chats in a spare bedroom, this camera is way overpowered for my needs. It's got a lot of stuff in it that I would love to have and use seldom, like 8K and the 6.4K open gate, for example. But I think for my needs, a lot of new cameras, not just this one, but I had the same conclusion with the GH7 as well. It's becoming like this, the technology is so advanced, it's probably beyond what I would personally ever need. So if I were a YouTuber, I would probably buy an S5 II or a G9 II and then spend the extra money on a plethora of lenses to enjoy. But for the right person and the right use cases, this is going to be an incredibly powerful tool. And Lumix have called this the best hybrid camera that they've ever made, and I have to wholeheartedly agree with that. There's nothing. One conversation that we kept coming back to when we were out in Norway and we were, sitting around chatting about the camera, trying to pick it apart, lest someone call us a shill, which someone inevitably already will. That's fine. We were all talking about where's the negative? What's the thing? What else do you actually want or need from a camera? I mean, I'm at the point now where several cameras are just beyond what I would ever need anyway. Aside from the battery life, there's very little that I could pick fault in with this camera. But then again, I'm not the main use case for this camera. So definitely check out some other videos. I shall link some of my favorites in the description to learn more about this camera and get a more rounded view of the new product. Because I think that's the main benefit, really. When we have all these videos come out on a day like today where, you'll be hit with a wall of 20 videos about the same camera. It's about seeing the different opinions and the different viewpoints from all these different people. If you just want to read the spec, go to Google. Go and see a couple of different videos and see what other people make of it. So as always, let me know in the comments what you think, and thank you so much for watching.